My name is Chris. I'm going to be your host. Give it up one more time for me. Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope you have all been having a great summer. I've been trying to spend my summer doing more good deeds. I recently donated blood for the first time. Thank you. Thank you. I thought I was doing a good thing, but the folks at Goodwill seem to disagree. I don't understand what their problem was. There was no need to call the police. They could have just said no thank you, right? Do we have any blood donors here tonight? Give it up for yourselves. Then about an eighth of the room. I'll give the rest of you the benefit of the doubt and presume you have Hep C. So that's a very rock and roll reason to be selfish with your blood. I know life comes at you pretty hard and fast out here in Brookfield. I get it. But let me take this moment to encourage all of you to donate. It's a good thing to do, and the needle isn't too bad. But what is rough is the amount of shade they throw at you beforehand before agreeing to accept your blood. Like the first thing they made me do was roll up my sleeves and show them my forearms to prove I don't have track marks. And look, if I was into heroin, do you think I would be here donating something I could sell? Absolutely not. I would be over at the plasma center in the parking lot stealing catalytic converters. Because unfortunately, heroin doesn't pay for itself. Then they ask you a really long list of personal questions, and I thought I should just get to have a little bit of fun with that since I'm doing them the favor. Like the first thing they asked me was if I've ever had sex with a man. Yeah, I said, absolutely not. We made love. How dare you make it sound cheap and tawdry? It was actually pretty special. Then they asked me if I have ever traded sex for drugs, money, or any other form of payment. And to that, I said, I haven't, but I also did not know that was an option. Are you kidding me? What have I been doing this entire time? I've just been giving my love away for clout and because I want people to like me. Last question they hit me with, they said, in the last 4 months, have you been in contact with anyone else's blood? And to that one, I said, only if you count my victims. Stab, stab, stab. Because like I said, I was just trying to be the fun guy at the blood center that day. Bring a little bit of levity to the blood drive. They didn't appreciate my sense of humor. They said they weren't going to use my blood. I said, okay, then I will try taking it to Goodwill. And that brings us back around to where that joke started, if you recall. That joke has good circulation. Thank you. Thank you. You got good taste. I appreciate that. I get offered to do some unexpected shows. Last summer, someone asked me if I wanted to perform at a conservative gathering that was happening in the park. Apparently, sometimes GOP stands for Grand Ole Picnic. And it's pretty funny for them to ask me, right? Because you can all probably look at me and tell this doesn't align with my politics, right? I'd say it's fairly obvious I'm a non-voter. You are not going to force me to have an opinion. The only thing bringing me to the polls is if there's a weed referendum. But I did agree to take the gig because they did something kind of sneaky. They offered me more money than the value of my principles, which, to be honest, was just any amount of money. They said they would pay, and I had to say, okay. It's just responsible. But once I had taken the gig, I kind of like these shows because it's a little bit of a challenge. You know, I'm going to have to work around some restrictions probably. And I was surprised with their requests. They were actually pretty relaxed. They got back to me. They said, all right, you can swear. You can talk about anything. All we ask is no pedophile jokes. Yeah, I found that to be alarmingly specific. Right? If that's on a list of topics that are out of bounds, that's fine. That's reasonable. But that by itself makes it sound like there are going to be pedophiles there. And they don't like being teased about it. Leave us alone. This is the one day we get to come to the park. And that doesn't sound like a fun audience for me. Just a bunch of uppity child molesters hanging out by the swings, grumbling about how age of consent should be states' rights. So I got back to the organizers and I said, look, I want you to be straight with me. Are there going to be pedophiles at this event? Because if so, I will need to be paid more for my conscience. And what's weird is they didn't say yes or no. They only asked how much. And now I know exactly how much my conscience costs. I like getting out on the road when I can. Sometimes I go through scary weather, though. One time I was on the freeway going through a really heavy downpour. And I guess I ended up driving straight through a tornado. Which one's the bad one? Watch or warning? Warnings where they've seen one. I get those two mixed up all the time because I've never lived in a mobile home. So that detail's never been pertinent to my survival. Yeah, I went right through a warning, the bad one, and it said to seek shelter immediately, but I had no clue because the tone they use for severe weather is the same tone they use for an Amber Alert. So I just ignored it, as we all tend to do. My only thought is, I was like, my God, who is out kidnapping kids in this weather? What a competitor. No days off. But then I thought about it a little more, and I suppose there would never be an easier time to lure someone into your windowless van, right? I mean, you don't even need candy when you have salvation to offer. Just ask the Catholic Church. Did you guys like that one? I'm glad you liked it because they hated it at the Republican picnic. This is fun. You're a fun audience. We're having a good time. I like doing comedy. I still kind of wish I could have been a musician instead, though. I get a little bit jealous of musicians because I think they're just cooler on stage. If a musician does their job right, everyone wants to be them. If a comic does their job right, no one wants to be them. That's why musicians get groupies and comedians have to settle for strained relationships. Sometimes I'll get booked to perform with a band, and that's a really hard act to follow. One year, I got a spot at a county fair, and I figured there'd be a lot of people there. I'm like, that could be a good show. And then I showed up and found out I was going to have to follow a Journey tribute act. Do you know how daunting that is? Do you know how many people who go to county fairs love Journey? All of them. 100%. If there is a Journey tribute act at State Fair this weekend, everyone will be there. Do you know how many people who go to county fairs have no idea who I am? Another 100%. So I knew if I couldn't get up there and hook this audience immediately, everyone was just going to hit the corn dog stand on me. I was going to suffer the unique indignity of performing in front of an empty tent. That's not something I wanted. So I was putting a little extra thought. I'm like, how can I grab this audience immediately? And I'm watching the band. They're just too good, you know? I'm like, they're practically the real Journey for these people. I'm trying to write jokes about Journey. I'm like, that's not a good idea. I didn't think I was going to pull it off. And then right before the band played their last song, the singer dedicated it to his stepson. And I was like, oh, I got it. I know exactly what to say. I got this. I went up there. I said, give it up for the band one more time. They were incredible. Can you believe that guy's a stepdad and performs in a cover band? Does he just refuse to compose original material? Hell yeah, right? That got him paying attention. I ended up having a pretty good set. I felt good about myself. But then after the show, I happened to run into fake Steve Perry. And I realized in that moment, musicians are a lot more sensitive to roasting than all of my comedy friends. Because he did not look happy. He came right at me like a midnight train going anywhere. And without saying a word, he hit me with one of those dad pokes to the chest. I suppose in this case, it was a stepdad poke to the chest. And he was like, hey, I didn't like you talking about me up there. How would you feel if I got on stage and I performed a song about what a bad comedian you are? And I said, well, that would absolutely hurt my feelings. But first, wouldn't someone else have to write and record that song? That's right, everybody. I got him twice. How are we feeling right now? We ready to keep going with this show?